Hello everyone, this is Shlok, and today we are breaking down the biggest current affairs topics from the first week of March 2025, quick, sharp, and to the point. Plus, I'll be sharing my take on some of these topics. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Let's come on to the elephant in the room right away. Donald Trump and his tariffs, and the main thing that we need to talk about is that there are new tariffs being imposed on Canada, Mexico, and China, and what are those rates that are being imposed upon them. 25%, 25%, and 20%, as I've mentioned here. In addition to that, we also need to understand that all of these countries have retaliated with counter tariffs. So full-blown trade war is in the works. Even the US stock markets are feeling the pinch and have fell about 2 to 2.5% on the 6th of March. We need to also know what are the key indices of the of the US stock market. The first one is the Dow Jones Industrial Index. After that, we have the S&P 500, which is the 500 biggest companies of the United States of America. And last but not the least, which is the NASDAQ. So NASDAQ is a very tech heavy sort of an index. So this is a little piece of information that we should definitely be aware about. Up next is what about India? We are also getting slapped with reciprocal tariffs starting the 2nd of April. Sensex has slid about 6% this year. And this entire, the crux of uncertainty has led to this. Manufacturing has fallen down to a 14-month low. And here's one thing we need to understand is that why is India worse off in this trade war? The reason for that is that we have a trade surplus with the United States of America, meaning we export more goods than we import. So what happens is when these tariffs are imposed, our opportunity to make money from foreign exchange decreases. Now let's look at some other statistics. Our overall trade is close to US dollar 880 billion with the United States, and our trade surplus, to be precise, is close to $46 billion with the USA. So we are essentially in surplus, and we are the ones who are gonna be losing out more in this trade war. And let's look at my very own take. What should be our response? We should reduce and simplify the tariff structure. We should try to bring in more foreign investments, because this February itself, we have lost more than 35,000 crore worth of funds. Moreover, we also need to create new trading partners. That is something we have already seen in the meeting of our Prime Minister and the President of the EU, Ursula von der Leyen. So that is yet another development that we should definitely be aware of. Alright, our next story is that couple of days ago, news was out that OPEC Plus has decided to increase global oil supplies. Now, first up, we need to understand what is OPEC and what is OPEC Plus. In addition to that, we also need to understand that what are the reasons that they are increasing the global oil supply. So let's first understand what is OPEC. OPEC stands for the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and is essentially the cartel of oil producing countries. Their goal is to control global oil supplies and maximize profits. And a very important thing to note over here is that they control close to 38% of the world's oil production. Now coming on to OPEC Plus, this adds Brazil, Mexico, and Russia to the cartel essentially. And why have they decided to increase oil supplies? The reason stated by the group, and I quote, is that they have cited healthy market fundamentals and positive market outlook. So in layman's terms, the OPEC Plus expects consumer expenditure to improve the world over, and they expect a rise in demand for petroleum and petroleum products. But the actual reason is experts are speculating is that this is due to Donald Trump's request to increase oil production and not be under his tariff threats. So this is a very important macroeconomic development that we should be aware of. Next, we have RBI's infusion of 1.9 lakh crore rupees in the Indian economy, and how they've done it is through open market operations. Now this brings us back to our Economics 102 video where I've talked about how open market operations work. So please check that out if you haven't already. Essentially what has happened is RBI has bought government securities worth 1.9 lakh crore, and what this does is it increases the money supply in the economy. It stimulates economic growth. So this is something that we can talk about in our interviews, that how the government is looking to stimulate economic growth. The first thing is the budget, how they are taking steps in order to increase the disposable income in the hands of the middle class. That is the 12 lakh whole thing, which we can talk about. In addition to that, we can talk about the repo rate cuts that the RBI has done. And this is the third thing that we can also talk about, that this is yet another way that the RBI is creating more liquidity in the economy. The next topic that we are going to be looking into is the Madhavi Puri Booch case. Now, who is she? She was the chief of SEBI until the 1st of March. So very recent development that we should be aware of. And who is the new SEBI chief? That is also something that we should be very well versed with. His name is Tuhin Kanta Pandey, and he's a seasoned career bureaucrat. Now let's get back to the Madhavi Puri Booch case. What exactly happened here? The Bombay High Court has recently directed an FIR against the ex-SEBI chief. And why is it, that you may ask? The reason is alleged stock market manipulation and fraud and regulatory violation, most importantly. So all this sounds very fancy, but in bare bones terms, it means that she enabled the listing. So essentially the IPO of companies that did not meet the prescribed regulatory norms. And this may lead to investors losing money because the company may not be financially sound. So that is the kind of allegation that has been imposed upon her, and we need to further follow this particular case in order to be well versed with what is happening in the financial markets of India. The next short topic I wanted to touch upon is that JioStar is going to lay off 1100 people, and the cuts will primarily affect corporate roles including entry-level employees, senior managers, senior directors, assistant vice presidents, and so on. So there is nothing really extraordinary to this particular update. But why I particularly wanted to highlight this is because this is a classic example for us to talk about how strategic mergers lead to a decrease in costs, because overlapping workforces essentially become redundant. So if anyone asks us that why do companies merge, this is one of those benefits, that there are cost savings in addition to consolidation of market. So that is yet another benefit that we can talk about. So a little bit about this topic. Let's get on to the next one. The next issue that has been in the news is that of delimitation and how the southern states are opposing it. The first thing we need to understand is what is delimitation. Delimitation involves adjusting boundaries of constituencies to ensure each one of these constituencies represents roughly an equal number of voters. Now, historically, this process used to occur after every national census, but in 1976, the government imposed a freeze on delimitation until after 2001 to encourage states to implement family planning programs without fearing a loss in the number of seats in the Lok Sabha. So this freeze was again extended, postponing delimitation until after 2026. So we've already seen close to a 50-year freeze in terms of the delimitation exercise. So why was this freeze extended is something again we need to understand. This is because northern states were not able to control their population growth. Now the current government is not very receptive to the idea of delaying this exercise again by 25 years, and that is something that isn't sitting right with the southern states. We need to understand why that is. This is because over the last 50 years, southern states have been able to successfully control their population, and northern states have witnessed population explosion. And if delimitation is taken up, what it will do effectively is reduce the voice of the southern states, even if there is no real decrease in their number of seats. What will happen is that there will be more seats in the Lok Sabha, and the southern states would see at best a negligible rise in their seat allocation. So what this does is there is a decreased percentage representation in the Lok Sabha that is given to the southern states. So that is the whole crux of the discussion behind the delimitation exercise. The next topic I want to cover is the Tamil Nadu CM MK Stallin's concerns over the new education policy of 2020. Now, the new education policy has brought in something that is called as the 3-language formula. This formula entails that 3 languages should be taught, and nowhere does it mandate the fact that Hindi should be one of those languages. However, Tamil Nadu government fears that implementing the new education policy could lead to indirect imposition of Hindi. And this is something that they fear undermines the linguistic autonomy that Tamil Nadu has maintained for decades. They also highlight that why they should change a system that has suited them well for decades. Thus, all in all, the ongoing debate highlights the fact that the complexities of educational reforms in a diverse nation like India, we need to understand that we need to maintain balance. Maintain balance between national objectives and regional identities and preferences. So this whole issue sort of highlights this particular fact. Alright guys, that's a little bit from my side, and I hope you got something to learn from this video. I hope this helps us in our MBA interviews. With that said, that's a little bit from my side. Please share this video if you found it helpful, and please subscribe if you take something home from this video. So with that said, that's a little bit from my side, and bye bye.